That's all people with disabilities want, is compassion, and just let us tell you or show you.
Welcome to Happy to See Me, the podcast that puts the spotlight on the overlooked and underestimated. I'm Erika Casupanan, the first Canadian to win Survivor. But before that, I was a Filipino immigrant and corporate perfectionist who felt doubted and overlooked. Now I'm here to prove that every journey, whether messy, beautiful, or unexpected, is worth celebrating. Every Monday, I bring you candid conversations and relatable pep talks with guests who've defied expectations. If you're ready to feel seen, celebrated, and empowered, you're in the right place. And here, I'm always happy to see you. Who needs beauty standards when you can celebrate your own unique beauty? And this week's guest, Andrea Pacheco, proves that stereotypes are meant to be broken and that disabilities can be celebrated in the pageant world. But first, I love to start each episode by talking about something I was happy to see this week. Number one, want to let everybody know I've been doing well. I've been doing good, keeping busy. I feel like I haven't posted on social media as much because I've been busy with life, work, all sorts of things. But I feel like I am doing well. So that's my check-in on my mood. But in terms of what I was happy to see this week, as I was getting this episode ready, I realized that my 100th episode is coming up really quick. As in next month, I will hit episode 100. I cannot believe that. I cannot believe that when I started the podcast in 2023, that I would ever reach 100 episodes. My goal was just to do 10 episodes. I can't believe that I've been able to stick with it because it's a lot of work. And I'm honestly so fortunate and so grateful that all of you listening, all of the shining stars who listen to this podcast that have stuck around with me too. And truly, doing this podcast has changed my life in so many ways beyond what you could even imagine. I've made friends, close relationships, work relationships through doing this podcast. So I'm so grateful for this show, which means that I have to plan a 100th episode. So let me know if there's anything you would love to hear me talk about on the 100th episode, or if you have any questions for me. I want to plan something kind of fun within reason because it is coming up truly in a couple weeks. But thank you, everybody who has stuck with this podcast for so long. And I honestly look back and I just think I cannot believe that weekly for 100 weeks, I've been able to make this show and release episodes. And I hope that that can be proof to anybody listening that with determination and with resilience and really with just being so focused on your goals and deciding you're just going to keep going no matter what, it is possible for you to make that dream come true or to make that creative project happen or really anything that is on your heart that you really want to do. I hope that this podcast getting to 100 episodes is proof that you can do it. And that goes perfectly with this week's guest, Andrea Pacheco. Andrea holds multiple beauty pageant titles, including Miss Barrie and Miss Canada United World. And Andrea was born with Okihiro Syndrome, which is a rare disorder that's characterized by upper limb anomalies and ocular anomalies. And she has never let her disability stop her. In addition to holding multiple beauty pageant titles, she's also an entrepreneur and an advocate for the disability community. In this episode, Andrea talks about her experiences being underestimated and being judged for her disabilities, and really pushing the envelope in the pageant world to make sure that everybody's beauty can be celebrated. And she shares advice for how we can be better allies to everybody. There are also some words of inspiration for folks who might be feeling judged and letting that judgment get you down. So as you're listening to this episode and you feel like there's someone in your life who can benefit from Andrea's inspirational journey, make sure you share this episode with them. But why don't we just get into it? Here is my interview with Andrea Pacheco. I hope you enjoy it.
And there's this thing we actually refer to as the pageant hangover because it is so real. Like the anxiety, the excitement, the nerves, the time schedules, the whole competition is like go, 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 go. So when you come back from that, your body just needs to relax.
Yeah.
Your energy needs to come back to like a balanced level. And you really do feel hung over in the sense where it's like this chaos is over. And like sometimes you win and you're like, oh my God, I'm a winner now. So now what's going to happen? Or you come back and you don't win and you're like, hey, what can I change? What can I do better? Right? So it's like, it really does stick with you. So the pageant hangover, it's a real thing. Any real pageant girl will let you know.
I can imagine. It's like the roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
Like you are going on all the twists and turns. You go on the big drop. There's the climax of the roller coaster. And then the ride ends and you just get off the ride. You're like, oh, okay, I'm still a little dizzy. I'm still getting my bearings. And now I have to act like everything's normal, even though I just did this thing that has required so much of my time and effort and energy and attention. So I can totally see the hangover.
Yeah. It's a lot. You got to really take it with a grain of salt. The first week, it's like you just got to ease into the job, right? Because we say who wears the crown wears the responsibility, and having a crown and a title doesn't make you a different person or anything like that. It's really what you do with that crown and that title that really shows your work and effort and ethics, right? So, example for me, when I became Miss Canada United World 2024, I really took that title and that crown and I ran with it. I made sure that I got as much out of it as I could, in the sense where I partnered with a lot of different charities. I was in a lot of fashion shows just so that I could bring awareness to people with disabilities in the fashion industry. And no one had ever seen a beauty queen with a disability. It's a big, like, wait, you're a beauty queen? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And they're like, oh. And it's like that moment, that awkward silence. It's like, oh, did I just change your mind? Or what's happening here? Are we having a moment? And I was like, do you want to talk about it? And they're like, are you comfortable? And I was like, sure, let's talk about how you're taking this. Is it, opening up your mind? And that is why I started the inclusive mindset movement. It was really about kind of shattering these barriers and these mindsets that people have about people like myself. I'm a scuba diver. Sometimes that's really hard for people to wrap their heads around. And it's like, I can swim. Yes, I have an adapted scuba gear, absolutely. But it never stopped me from doing anything. It just made me work harder to get to where I wanted. So it's not as easy for me as it might be for someone else, but that doesn't mean I won't do it. It just empowers me to find a way.
See, I feel like you have answered my next question, but feel free to elaborate, because I usually love to ask people, tell us about a moment when you have felt underestimated. Would you say a lot of being underestimated has come from being a person with a disability?
Okay, so I really love this question because 100% my entire life has been like this, and it doesn't stop. It's still happening to me today. It'll happen to me tomorrow, and it'll forever happen to me as long as society doesn't catch up with the reality of we're in 2025. I am no longer a person who has no options. People with disabilities, we are here to stay. We are a major part of society, and at any time, anyone can become disabled. So at any given moment, you yourself could become part of a disability community. So it's really kind of breaking that stigma and that barrier, because I am constantly underestimated, and it doesn't matter what it's about, whether it's about fashion, whether it's about beauty, or more importantly, work. Work and school have been a really, really big problem for me. And it's been my disability that's held me back. And it's not my physical disability that has ever held me back. It was always the mindset of the people who were in charge or in power of me, making decisions for me, not including me in those decisions. That has been the biggest barrier I've ever had to break, and I am constantly still doing that today. And these hurdles, I feel like they're never going to stop until society gets to a place of understanding where we are all equal and people will stop assuming on my behalf. And I'll give you a really great example. I applied for a job at Home Depot. I made it all the way to the second or third interview. I was doing phenomenal. I had the greatest vibes. I was like, for sure, I'm going to get this job. And the third interview was with a person who was not comfortable with me from the minute they sat down. I could tell that they were fidgeting. They were trying not to look at my arms. They couldn't keep eye contact with me, and they are interviewing me. So I immediately knew, uh-oh, we have a problem here. So I tried to talk to them in a manner that would say, like, hey, I'm more than my disability, just give me a chance. But they could not get past it. So I did not get that job.
Wow.
And it was really unfortunate because the first two interviews I had were with people who I could tell didn't matter to them that I had a disability. They saw the potential in me as a good employee. They were looking past that and they saw that I could do something. But that third person was not having it. The third person just could not wrap their head around it. And of course, I didn't get the job. And I can't say to that person, hey, I know why you didn't hire me. And this is kind of where my whole life is always falling into a gray zone. I know what's being done. However, it's very hard for me to prove it. And at that point in time, someone like me is going to have to cut their losses and move on. And that is sad because I am missing so many opportunities. And I know a lot of people with disabilities feel the same way. I'm being overlooked. My resume speaks volumes. And the minute I go for my in-person, it doesn't matter what my resume says. People cannot wrap their head around the physical.
Right.
So it is very, very hard for me to break through that barrier. So doing something like this gives me so much power and empowers me so much more because people are listening to my story. People are getting to know me as a person first. And now these assumptions of me have been broken before I even get through the door. I'm going to finally sit at the tables that I should have been sitting at all along, right? And I've never had the power to have a voice until now. So I really want to use my voice to empower others to do the same, to not let people hold them back. And that is literally why I called it the inclusive mindset movement, because it's just so much more than just a physical disability. It really is the way we look at each other. It's the way we treat each other. It's the way we assume things about each other. I think that's the biggest problem society has right now. We need to fix that.
If I understand correctly, the disability you have, it's something that you were born with, right?
Correct, yeah.
So you, from a young age, you must have been able to learn that people are going to have assumptions about you. You must have been able to learn to differentiate between someone judging you for who you are versus someone judging you based on their own short-sightedness or their own ignorance or lack of understanding. Is that something that you have always had to develop since you were a kid?
So you've got to have thick skin. Because I was born this way, I've always had this happen to me. It's not like I had an accident and then became disabled. So I was born with a physical disability and I was always the only one. So I was the only one in my entire school who had a physical disability. I was the only one in sports that had a physical disability. And this became a pattern throughout my life. It did become a problem, but at the same time, I learned to take people at face value very young. So I would say maybe between the ages of 5 to 7, which is extremely young to have such self-awareness, I knew when people were babying me or treating me differently because of my arms, as opposed to the people who treated me normal and treated me like they treated everyone else. And I could tell that there's a shift in energy. And I still have people till this day that meet me and try to baby me and they don't know me. And I'm 42 years old. And it's like, thank you, but no thank you. I'm quite capable of doing these things on my own. There's this social weird feeling that people are afraid to ask. It would be much better if somebody says, hey, can I do that for you? Or do you need help? I love when people ask me that. Hey, can I do that for you? No, I'm good. I got it. Awesome. We're good. As opposed to somebody running in and trying to open the door because they assume that I can't open the door. Maybe a door is not a good one because I love when people open doors for me. But example, if I'm going up an escalator and I've got like a bag or something and I'm waiting till we get closer to the top to lift up the bag and the person behind me, oh my God, they're like having a whole panic meltdown attack because they're anticipating that I can't get off the escalator when in fact I'm perfectly fine doing so. But it's just that behind me and I'm looking at the person. I'm like, are you okay? Is something wrong with you? Do you need my help? And they're like, oh my God, I thought you couldn't do it. And I was like, whoa, calm down. Like, I'm fine. If you had asked, like, hey, do you need help? I would have let you know, no, thank you. I'm actually good. Thank you so much. But I think there's this weird, it's kind of like a barrier that has happened because now people are afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Right? So now people are afraid to say like, oh, I know you have a disability, but, and it's like, there is no but. Yes, I have a disability. Ask your question.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
just let's treat people fairly and kindly and don't make it so much about the person's disability. In fact, ask them, you know? So I always lead with that. Like, hey, if there's a question, I'm an open book. Ask me first. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So asking people, hey, do you need help? Or can I do that for you is never wrong. right? You can't be wrong when you're using kindness. When you're leading with kindness, you're good. It's when the assumptions start, like I was shopping at No Frills and I had a cashier yell and scream at the top of her lungs when it was my turn to put the stuff on the moving belt. I've been shopping by myself for many years. It was really confusing for me at one point, but she was yelling at the top of her lungs, "Can somebody come here? She can't do this for herself." But I mean, so loud. I was shocked. I was just like, what? So I started slowly putting my stuff on myself and ignoring her screaming. And then she did it again and she looked at me and she's like, "You can't do it." And I was immediately annoyed because I was like, all right, you know what? We're going to turn this into a teaching moment. I was like, "Call your manager." And she's like, "What?" I said, "Call your manager, your supervisor. We're going to have a conversation right now." And so I pulled them aside and I said, "I'm not upset. I just think that this is a learning moment. And I think that this needs to be talked about right now in the moment. I don't want her to get in trouble because I don't think she meant it in any wrong way at all. It was the way she did it. Her screaming at the top of her lungs that I can't do something. The assumption was there. And then everybody in the lineup is immediately looking at me like I can't do it for myself. Everybody's running to do it for me. And I'm like, what just happened? Like, I was fine. I was perfectly fine. Her assumption threw everyone else into panic. And then people immediately started coming around me like, "Do you need me to do that?" And I was like, "No, I am fine." So I pulled her aside and I said, "We're going to have a talk about that. The way you did that was unprofessional. The way you spoke to me was unkind. After I told you the second time, I'm actually perfectly fine in doing it myself. I do not need someone else. You still called a third person." That was now 2 times that I'd asked you to stop doing that. And she still continued to do so, which is why I said, let's have a conversation with your manager at this point, because this is a training thing. This is something that needs to be trained with all staff. And this is why I love being an accessibility consultant. And I love to do this on the side, is I love to go into companies. I love to have these conversations and say, hey, what are the problems or what happens in your real business? What is something that you've encountered that you feel uncomfortable talking about or doing when you encounter someone with a disability? And these are really hard conversations for people to have because it's uncomfortable. But these are conversations that need to be had because you just need to know better that people don't want to be treated like that.
See, I feel like with the examples that you're describing, everyone was well-intentioned, right? Everyone wanted to be helpful.
Absolutely.
And I think that for everyone listening, and even for myself, I know what it's like to be in situations where you meet somebody who is different and you want to be helpful, you want to be inclusive, but there's that freeze moment where you're like, I'm not sure what to do.
Correct.
It's so clear what you're saying where you're like, it's okay if you don't know what to do, but you can ask.
Just ask.
Just ask. It's about, okay, the kindness is there, the intention is there. What's left is the curiosity.
And the consent. Consent is a really, really big problem for people with disabilities. Normally, people do things without my consent, and it happens so often. People will just assume that it's okay. It is not okay at any point. I had a jet ski, and I love to ride my jet ski by myself, so I would put the jet ski in the water by myself. I would park the car by myself, and I would ride by myself. Well, one day, there was a man with a very large boat who was parked beside my jet ski on the water in Barrie. He did not think that I could, A, drive a car, or B, definitely couldn't ride a jet ski. And how this happened was when I was pulling my jet ski out of the water. He was so annoyed with me because A, I could tell I was taking too long for him or whatever the case would be. But the last thing he did was come over to my car because you have to back the jet ski into the water and then you put the car in park. I had to like unload and put the straps on once the jet ski is actually on the trailer. So I was doing this all by myself and like, you know, shout outs to me, Superwoman. But he was just really thrown off by the fact that I was doing all this stuff and I was taking too long for him. He came up to me and he's like, people like you should not drive. People like you should not have vehicles. People like you cannot be on the water. It's not safe. And I just looked at him like, okay, you're having a bad day today. I can tell.
Wow.
And I just went about my day because at that point in time, there was absolutely nothing I was going to say or do that was going to change this man's mentality. People like that need to just take a chill pill and I wasn't doing anything to bother him or doing anything. It was, he felt the need to come and try to really, make me feel bad about myself. And I was like, people like me own cars. People like me own boats. People like me drive cars. We drive boats by ourselves. And people like me are more than capable of doing this. So if that bothers you, respectfully, sorry, not sorry. And this happens to me a lot. And it is an everyday thing for me. And it happens to me in the funniest ways. And I'm okay with talking about it. But for some people, it creates extreme social anxiety. That is something I also went through. And I had to really kind of sit with why that bothered me so much. Social anxiety is very hard for people with disabilities because it gets to the point where you don't want to go out, you don't want to leave the house because people are just so in your business and you just don't feel like you're your own person, right? I'm going to back up here in my story. In 2008, I was actually in a terrible rollover on the QEW here in Toronto, and I was ejected out of the vehicle. I suffered an extreme brain injury. I lost 33% of the left side of my brain and my frontal lobe, and I became very disabled. I had broken numerous bones. I broke different parts of my spine. I permanently dislocated my shoulder. I had extreme injuries, and I was in the neurotrauma ICU for a very long time, and then Toronto rehab, and it took me over 5 years of extreme one-to-one private care. I had a 24-hour care nurse. So we're talking about somebody who was born with a disability, who never felt like she was disabled because she could do everything and anything that she wanted to do or tried to do in an adapted way, to someone who literally became a baby all over again. So I had to learn how to walk, chew, spit, swallow, to speak, to write, to do simple equations. It was as if I was a newborn baby. I had to relearn everything within 5 to 6 years.
Wow.
And no one ever thought. They counted me out from the beginning. Immediately, oh no, she's done. She had a really bad disability to begin with, and now she's got this brain injury. Let's pull the plug on her. And my mom's like, no, she's going to make it. And thank God for my mom, because again, everybody was like, you've had enough, you're done. And here I am talking about this story now.
Wow.
If everybody had counted me out and my mom wasn't the one to say, like, no, her life is worth living, I wouldn't be here talking about this story. So it's such a powerful thing to have a disability and then to know what it's like to be completely disabled. So now I have this complete different respect because I spent a very good portion of time in a wheelchair. And I never had that experience before. I didn't know what it's like to be someone who relied on a caregiver. Now I know what it's like to have somebody completely do everything for you. So all of your daily living, your cleansing, your bathing is being done by another person. That is extremely personal and intimate to have to give that control over to people that you don't know. So that was a very big ha-ha for me as a person with a disability, because I've always had friends with disabilities who are in wheelchairs, but I've never understood their perspective. I've never understood what it's like to have that type of a disability and need to rely on someone else. And now I just have this huge respect for caregivers because it's not easy taking care of someone like that. It really is hard. And I saw how hard it was for my mom. I saw how hard it was for my actual personal caregiver. She was an amazing caregiver. But even her, like, I could see the toll it would take on her as well, right? It's hard. So, like, shout out to anybody who does that, because you got to really be able to put that person first.
Yeah. And it really shows the spectrum of disabilities, right?
Yes.
It's so different. Even if people have a similar disability, the experience that they're going to have is so different. And the amount of care and support that's required is so different. After you went through that experience, did it change your outlook on life at all?
Absolutely. So I feel like I wasn't really living my best life before my car accident. I was doing things, but I had gone to a part of my life that I felt very stagnant and just didn't know where to go from there. And then once that was all taken away from me and I had no options, I had to really come back and say, like, well, what do I like? Who am I? Because now I am not the person I used to be. I don't like the same things. My brain doesn't work the same way. I'm relearning how to be a human, how to be a person. Just seeing how people treated me when I was nonverbal, because that was a big deal for me. When I was not able to communicate, that is when I saw people at their true core. I have never experienced anything like that. To hear people talk about me as if I wasn't there and I'm right in front of them and making life or death decisions for me as if I am not there. And I have no way of communicating. I have absolutely no opinion because even if I did, I have a brain injury. They are not going to take my opinion into account. So I did not count for a
Wow.
long time. I did not have power of attorney over myself. My mom did. And thank God I have a good mom because it gets sticky with people with disabilities when they have people who are not good people with power of attorney. And that's a really big thing with people with disabilities. So thank God for places like Empower Simcoe that help people with special needs and help them regain control over their own lives, that teach them how to be independent, how to actually get out, have jobs, do things that empower them to live authentically. That is what I'm about. That's what I'm here for because that's the experience I've had.
Well, you went from feeling like you weren't being seen, you weren't being heard, to then being on stage and taking home some titles. So I know that you have had so much history within the pageant world over the last couple years. Can you share how you actually got into pageantry?
So I have a beautiful friend. Her name is Chioma, and she's actually the director of Canada United World. I actually didn't know what pageants were back in 2021, 22. I had never, I mean, I've seen Miss Congeniality,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
movie with Sandra Bullock. Of course, we love that movie.
But growing up, you were never interested in pageants or
No,
anything like that.
no, never, never. So I was never really a girly girl. Like, I love being feminine and stuff like that, but I've been a boy mom. I've been living in yoga pants for a long time and sometimes even just pajamas. So, like, getting dressed up and dolled up and glammed up really wasn't in my comfort zone. It wasn't something I was used to doing, but I really enjoyed it. And I found that she asked me, why don't you do a pageant one day? So how it started is I actually sponsored Canada United World, I believe 2022. So I sponsored them with my company, Berry Goddess Crystals. So I gave all the delegates gift bags and cute little crystals and stuff for good luck. And the year that happened, they showed the video about my business during the pageant. So I got to watch the pageant. I saw the video of myself. It was really cool. And I watched the pageant for the first time and I was stunned. After the pageant was over, like we were talking and I said to her, like, hey, is there anybody with a disability that's ever competed or done anything like this? And she's like, no. And I was like, huh, why not? And she's like, well, why don't you do it? And I was like, no way, me? I would never. And then she said it again. She was like, no, really? Why don't you do it? And I was like, I could never. I could never do this. And she's like, I have a feeling you could be really good at this. So shout out to her for teaching me or even showing me that pageants existed. And I will forever be grateful because I've gone back now 2 years in a row to that system, and that is my home system. It's where I started. So I'm very, very proud to have been a reigning queen for them for the last year because that is really where I got my start. So thank you.
I love
Thank you,
it.
Canada United World, and thank you, United World, who also accepted me with such loving, open arms in Texas, which was a really big deal. So going international is not even close to nationals. It is very much more competitive. I think when I got there, all the women from around the world were very accepting of me. And a lot of them were kind of like, oh, how do we approach her? But because I'm like this giant ball of energy and I'm just like a firecracker, I didn't wait for them to come to me. I went up to them and I was like, hey, my name's Andrea. Nice to meet you. I'm, Miss Canada United World. And they were like, wow, you are like not what we thought at all. You are actually so down to earth. And I was like, oh, thank God. I wasn't going to wait. I just kind of was like, all right, there's this awkward, I'm just going to get in there. And thank God I have that type of personality. It has really served me well. I am naturally a public speaker. I've been an ambassador for, it's now called Bloorview Macmillan. It used to, no, sorry. Now it's called Holland Bloorview Macmillan. Holland Bloorview. They're changing their names too much. Sick Kids and War Amps. So I have naturally always been an ambassador. I've always been able to speak about my disability, but never to this level. And I feel like pageantry gave me the opportunity to polish it, to turn it into a platform and to actually do something with it. So that's why I'm so happy to have this opportunity to be on a podcast with you.
Oh, yay.
Is because it's full circle. We're getting to why I started in pageantries. This is it.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to do it, was to make waves, just to, start something. I want to be the first person. I never wanted to be the last. I just wanted to be that one person that's like, hey, if I can do this, you can do this. Let me show you how. And just do it. And if I could give anybody any advice, it would be to get out of your own head. I think we are all in our own heads, whether we have a disability or not. And sometimes we are our worst enemies. And a lot of the times I held myself back because I listened to someone else's opinion of me when they were making me seem like I was unworthy of an opportunity, or unworthy to make decisions for myself, or unworthy to sit at a table where I had a voice. So thank God that I am no longer like that. I absolutely am a woman of substance. I stand in my power. I mean what I say what I mean, and I don't apologize. I am very unapologetic now. And I think that has served me very well in the last 2 years, because I stand on my business. And when I say something, I really mean it with every ounce of my body and my soul.
Have you noticed, since you've joined pageantry, you've certainly been someone who's broken the mold, right? I feel like when you think of the stereotypes of pageants, you think about the women with the stereotypical bodies and the long blonde hair, and then like the bad responses to the questions.
Yeah.
Certainly that is not you at all. So you've definitely broken the mold. Have you noticed there have been changes in pageantry since you've become part of the community? Or do you notice that you are changing people's perspectives or changing their opinions?
Yes to all of the above. I'm actually an ambassador for an organization called True Faces. Shout out to Emily. Emily is also a pageant girl. She is legally blind. She is Canada's personality pageant. So she is also a title holder from, I think she won in Calgary, Alberta. But together, her, Michaela, and I, and a few other people, correspondents, we wrote a guide for directors and other pageant contestants for disabilities. So the first of its kind, we've come out with an inclusive guide, and when she drops it, I will link it to you, and maybe you could share it. That would be great. It's a lot of tips about accessibility, but more inclusivity. So things from the director's point of view, that after competing 2 years in a row, there were a lot of things that I was like, hey, we could do better. It worked for me, but I am the 1% that maybe could have gotten away with that, but I needed this, this, and this. And that wasn't offered to me. So I think having these hard conversations with directors and other contestants with disabilities is a good thing, because it prepares them. And it gives you that time to prepare for the competition, but it also gives the director time to make changes for their next year, which is a really big problem. Most people treat people with disabilities as an afterthought. We are not an afterthought. We are people. We need to be treated as such. And I think now the director's example, United World in Texas, was the first place I've ever seen an accessible stage. I've never seen that before. I was over the moon. I just wanted to highlight that, because it may have been something that they took into account, but it made a huge difference for me. Even though I'm no longer in a wheelchair, it was just that, okay, they thought about people like me. They've included people like me. There was even an accessible bathroom. That never happens at a competition ever. So there's never a way to get on the stage, and there's never an accessible bathroom or an accessible change room. If I could say anything, I'd say, please, directors, plan that out, because you can't attract people with disabilities if you're not making room for us. There is no room for people like us, because if we want to compete, how do we get on stage? How do we go change in the change room? We need a caregiver, or sometimes we need a change room with, that folding bed that helps people get up and off. So these things are hard, but they need to be done, and it needs to be normal. It needs to be universal design, so that it's for everyone.
That's the thing. And it really is for everyone. People probably think, what's the likelihood that someone in a wheelchair is going to come in here? But it's helpful for everybody. There's all sorts of people who have issues with mobility, whether it's like older people, parents with strollers. It's ensuring that everybody can get there. And as you said
Equal
earlier,
access.
our situation could change at any time. Somebody who's normally able-bodied could become disabled. And it's really to just make sure that everybody at every point of their life has access to all the spaces.
Agreed. And I think equity having an equal chance is a really big thing for me. And that's something I've been advocating really big on because it's unfortunate, but it is true. And even as a title holder, I was still getting snubbed. I was left out of a lot of things that I was like, oh, that's weird. But I know why I'm being left out. It's unfortunate, but it's still happening today. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the truth because I'm not someone who holds back. And I feel like if I'm going to give people the real me, then you need to know that it's not always pretty. I have a very traumatic past. I have had a very tough life. And I'm someone who didn't let it stop me. And that's the part that I want to highlight. Not the tough parts, they need to be told, but more, the glow up.
Yeah.
How did we turn it around? So I turned my pain into my passion. And that is really what I do and what I speak about the most is turning it into something that empowers you. Because you're always going to have the high and low, always going to be like a roller coaster. It's how you get back on the ride.
Yeah.
You never get off the ride. It's how you get back on the ride. That says so much about you, about your character, right?
Through talking to you, it's clear that you have developed such a strong sense of self-acceptance. And I think that that's something that's hard for anybody to develop, whether or not they have a disability or they're part of a marginalized community. So how did you create this feeling of self-acceptance?
It was not easy. I still struggle with it sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you. Everybody has those moments. But I really do a lot of visualization exercises. And because I'm such a crystal energy girl,
Same.
I have a lot of meditation techniques. I do love my crystals, but more than anything, it's looking in the mirror and it's literally saying, I am beautiful. I am super worthy. I know what I can and can't do, and no one's going to make that decision for me today. And then you get up and you have the best day of your life. And that's it. And it's doing it again the next day. When I first had my car accident, self-acceptance wasn't there for me. It took me probably quite a few years to accept that this was the new me, that I did have a brain injury, that I wasn't the same person, that a lot of the things in my life that I knew to be a certain way were no longer the same for me. And that my entire life really did change in 1 second. That's all it took. And I had a lot of opportunities taken from me in that 1 second. So it's like 1 second changes your trajectory for the rest of your life. They gave me an option. You either try to train to go back to work. So I used to work for the Ministry of Community Social Services, and I worked for the Ontario Disability Support Program. So I had my dream job. I was living my dream life. I loved working for the government. I thought I was going to do amazing things there as a person with a disability. After working there for a year, I found out that that was not the case, that my opinions were not being taken well. And in fact, I was actually getting into a lot of trouble for speaking the truth. There's a lot of red tape. I was brought in to have a voice, but the higher ups and people in the office, let's just say the water cooler talk, started to become very apparent that I actually wasn't welcome there. And that is a place for people with disabilities who are making decisions for people with disabilities. It's absolutely where I need to be. So it was very funny to see, I rubbed people the wrong way. I didn't care that I rubbed them the wrong way because I had a valid experience, because I am a person who was on ODSP. So the way they made decisions for me also benefited everyone else, and it would also deter other people from asking for help. When I had that car accident and I could no longer work there again, I had to make a really big decision. Either go back and train to go work or go to school for something completely different. So I chose to change. I went to school and I became a chef. Not something I ever thought I would want to do. But when I was in rehab, all we watched were cooking shows. And I was obsessed with Cake Boss. I was obsessed with cakes and pastries. I was like, that looks so fun and also so hard. Because now I have a permanently dislocated shoulder. I can't pick anything up. But I'm like, I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. When I got to the school, they have a disability office that comes and they write accommodation letters on your behalf. I'm coming from a severe car accident with a severe brain injury, and I have a full-time RSW, which is a rehab support worker. So she is basically my arms for me. So I come into the meeting and I meet this gentleman who is going to write a letter about me for what accommodations I need in the classroom. So I am very specific and I say, hey, I have a rehab support worker. She's going to be doing all the heavy lifting. So that's not going to be a problem for me. I, however, may need more time to do certain things. I would like a little bit more time. That's all I asked for. I did not ask for anything above and beyond that special request. Fine. They write a letter, and I never get to see this letter. Only the chef does. The chef was an amazing person. I'm not going to mention any names, but she was great. She met me. She was kind of taken back, but she was like, you know what? I'm going to let her show me what she can do. And this was the greatest gift she could have ever given me, is she didn't assume. She didn't judge me. And what was in that letter, I found out when I graduated, couldn't have been further from the truth from who I was from the first day. So the letter stated that I had no arms at all,
What?
that they had no idea what I was doing there, and for them to basically humor me and let me sit at the back of the class, and that I would just pass for basic participation type of accommodations.
Wow.
So I got there 15 minutes early. I weighed out all my ingredients. I was a star in class because I wanted that. I wanted to learn. So I came earlier because I knew it took me longer to do things. And I left later than other people because I knew it took me longer to wash up, clean my station. But I never gave up. And my rehab support worker did not do the job for me. She, however, did the heavy lifting. There are massive bowls that are super heavy. She did that stuff. She did the very heavy things that I could not do. But other than that, I was present. I took all the classes. I did all of the theory. I did all of the pastries. And I really did enjoy myself. So when I graduated, she gave me the letter. And I got to read it for myself. And I cried because it was a full circle moment. Because she said, had I listened to a word that was in that paper and not given you the chance, you are not that person. She said, the first day I met you, I wanted to tear up this letter.
Wow.
And she said, I didn't tear it up because I wanted you to see how far you've come, and what people think about you and who you are two different things. Don't ever let someone like that hold you back. And that's why she never showed me until I graduated. And God bless her, because people like that are golden. They don't assume. They let you show them where you're at in your journey. And that's all people with disabilities want, is compassion, and just let us tell you or show you. So it's that assumption, and that he didn't feel that I was worthy of being there. And his letter spoke volumes about me, and he did not know me. He sat down and interviewed me for 5 minutes and wrote that letter.
The audacity to write that on paper.
On paper.
Are you for real?
So he's not the first person
Yeah.
to say that I don't have arms. That is something that's been said about me many times. I obviously do have arms. I have 4 fingers. My disability is called Okihiro Syndrome, and it's actually a missing of the radial bone, which is what gives your arm the length. That is why my arms are shorter. So I'm not missing my arms. I am, however, missing a major bone in my arms that gives me longer arms. And I'm also missing a finger, so I don't have pinkies. So I have 4 fingers. My son was born the same way. He also has Okihiro Syndrome, but he was born with 9 fingers. So he has more than me. So we always call him the 2.0.
He upgraded a little bit.
He's the upgrade, absolutely. He is mini me
Wow.
2.0. And yeah, so he has a lot more upper strength than I do. His arms are longer than mine. And he's a boy, right? Boys are just built differently. He's like a tank, you know, like he's good to go. He's got lots of energy, and his disability does not hold him back whatsoever. Having a mom like me has probably definitely empowered him quite a bit. But we also go through a lot of high and lows about our disabilities. And that is why I started in pageantry, and he became my why. The why came from him because he was going through some problems at school. And I just felt like, how can I advocate on his behalf? How can I tell the whole world? How can I shoot it off, scream from the rooftops? We are not what you think we are. You know, we are people. We deserve to have the same rights as everyone else. Be kind. You know, and I find that that's a really hard thing for young kids in school to kind of wrap their head around. So my next goal this year is definitely to get into schools, to have these conversations with groups of kids and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm trying to head. I've been working on some children's books, but I think my journey has taken me to a place where I want to do more, and I want to speak to bigger audiences, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Wow. Before we wrap, Is there one thing that you want the listeners to take away from your journey?
One thing to take away from my journey is to I have main character energy.
You do. You definitely do.
Absolutely. I think everybody needs to have main character energy. If there's anything from my story that you can take is don't ever let anyone make any decisions for you that you're not comfortable with, that do not resonate with you and do not align with what you want. I have a very, very good self-awareness for myself of who I am, what I want, and what I want the world to see. That took a lot of work. So doing the work and journaling is my biggest advice. Write it down. Put it on paper because it becomes very real. And if there's anything you can learn from me is I'm still getting knocked down. I'm not on a pedestal. And just because I'm a previous title holder does not give me I don't get any extra credit. It doesn't matter. It didn't change who I am. And even if I win the next pageant or I don't win the next pageant, none of that changes who I am. And it doesn't change my trajectory. My trajectory is already on its own way. And I don't let either situations or people change where I'm going. So if you're going to learn anything from me, it's have a plan. And don't let anybody try to change you from your plan.
I love it. That's an amazing place to end up on. If people want to keep up with you or follow you on social media, where can they do that?
I would love for everybody to follow me on Andrea Pacheco Pageantry. So spell it out, ANDREIA _ Pacheco, PACHECO _ pageantry. And you'll find me there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining today. I learned so much from your journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to see this.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and spending a bit of time with me this week. And I will be happy to see you next Monday.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Sonar Network.